Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of well-being and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with the brilliant Binny Langler, who is the director and lead coach of the Inkling Effect. She's an executive and careers coach who helps to transform her clients to find their magic and design the life and careers that they aspire to have. Binny works with individuals, teams, leaders, large corporations, startups, and small businesses, leading her to transition into a full-time coaching and guiding others to achieve their successful career transition that serves them well. Most importantly, Binny is a mother of two beautiful girls alongside her amazing husband, Tim. When Binny isn't transforming others to lead their best lives, you'll find her enjoying aerial yoga, Pilates, watering her abundance of indoor plants, and simply walking their very own cheeky red heeler Roy. So let's dive into today's amazing conversation. Binny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here. Always love to have a chat.
We're really excited to find out and learn more about what really led you to this massively transformational work that you're doing in the coaching space, but also as an executive and strength-based coach. We're really, really excited to know a little bit more about how that came about.
Sure. And more recently, I've actually added in the career side of things, and we'll probably dive into that later as why that became really important to add that aspect of coaching in there. But really the motivation came from, and it's so vivid to me still now as a teenager, having to choose what course I was doing at uni. I had no idea. And I kept thinking about things and going, but I don't just want to do economics, or I don't just want to do PR. And it was so varied. And I couldn't understand how I had all these very different options when everyone else knew what they wanted. And I remember Mum saying to me, well, what do you love about school? And I said, well, the variety. She goes, well, just choose a course that gives you that, which I did. And I ended up doing hotel management. And I had everything from cooking to economics to management and marketing. But I now know why I struggled, because I know what my strengths are. And I know that, driven by one of my top strengths, learner, I loved variety. I loved doing different things, and I couldn't do just one thing over and over again all the time. But my passion for coaching people and the strength side of things is, imagine if everybody knew their strengths at that point in those final years of school, and knew what energized them, and knew that they were more about wanting to be around people, or they were more strategic thinking. And I'm really strategic thinking and do a lot of that kind of deep thinking and strategizing and ideation. So if I'd known that, I would have made different choices then. And I think everybody needs to be armed with just some kind of definitive knowledge about who they are and what makes them tick. And then it grows from there. You just want to know more and you want to understand yourself more. So I think I wouldn't say I made bad career choices. I would have made different choices if I'd known before my 40s what my strengths were.
Mm-hmm.
And so my passion and mission now is that if I can just have one more person, 5 more people, 10 more people really understand what their innate talents and strengths are, it just means that they're empowered to make choices to be happier, lead meaningful work life, greater fulfillment, joy, and that just multiplies. And so that's what drives me, and that's what really gets me out of bed and excited to just add more people with that knowledge into the world.
Makes such a difference when you understand your strengths, doesn't it? I know in my own experience, but I didn't really know myself until I understood my strengths. And when that came about, all of a sudden, some things that I had struggled with, for example, I'm a thinker, and sometimes I need to take time to process something. So I feel under pressure at times to give an answer right now, that I can go away and come back. And but I didn't understand that about myself. So there was a whole pressure that I had on myself about that.
It's really interesting you say that, Leanne. I managed someone in my last full-time role, and that talent is intellection. So you like to ponder over it, often overnight, and don't want to or are not ready to respond straight away. And she had it really high. So knowing that and managing her, if we had an ideation meeting the next day or somewhere where I needed her to contribute, I would prepare her. I would give her all the information the night before, because I knew she would bring and contribute more with that preparation time than if she was brought into the meeting, told what we're talking about, and then expected to respond. And I got so much more value from her, and her comfort level was so much higher because of that. So it can change everything in a workplace, having this knowledge about people.
Feeling understood about the people who lead you is powerful as well. That must have been a game changer for her also.
Oh, it's amazing. There's two different teams I've coached in this style. One was using Myers-Briggs before I was introduced to Gallup Strengths, which is what I coach with now. And this more recent team was Gallup Strengths. Both were really effective in different ways, but Gallup Strengths is really more detailed. And both teams have said, as a manager, and the experience in the team is the best workplace they've ever been in. They've felt so comfortable, safe to be themselves and understood, and enabled to thrive. And that just makes me so happy as a person to know that you can have people wanting to and enjoying to be at work.
And that's that contagion effect, isn't it, Binny, where once you know your strengths and you have that awareness of, oh my goodness, for years people have been telling me about my weaknesses and how I have to change my weaknesses. And all of a sudden there's a different language and a different dialogue into actually what's right with us. And at those unique skills and talents that we have, we need to just be doing more of those. So that's just wonderful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Binny, you recently wrote about how people are currently really struggling with challenges in their lives and at work, and specifically things that might be holding people back from living their best life, feeling stuck in their careers or their pursuits to do something that they aspire to bring to the world. I'm curious to learn from you, how do you help them to discover their brilliance and change the narrative of what's possible?
Well, first of all, I think we grossly underestimate the number of people feeling like this. And Gallup do a survey around engagement at work every year, and 80% of workers globally are disengaged at work. And this has huge ramifications on their mental health, on their impact on people that they work with. So it's a really big issue. The thing that I noticed is also that most people don't talk about it. They don't recognize that their misalignment with their work is actually impacting their mental health and causing them to become apathetic about work. So they're kind of living in this situation which they can't identify, makes them feel lousy, and I know because I've been there, but it's really about knowing who you are at your core. And this is where I start with every coaching engagement, is starting by knowing your strengths. Because if you know what they are, know what you're innately born with, that's the key to then aligning the work that you do to who you are, and everything just flows from there. And it sounds really simple, And what I find when people first do their strengths assessment, we sit down and we're having a debrief, and I say, now let's just have a look down the bottom, because you have 34 different talents and you turn them into strengths. And the bottom 10, we never focus there. But what we do is go down to the bottom 10 and say, is there anything down there that might be getting in the way of your success? Or more importantly, they're feeling really disengaged at work. If they're in this feeling of being stuck and in this loop, I'll say often what you'll find is the work you're doing now is focused down in these bottom 10. And they have a look down there and they just sigh, and some of them get upset and go, wow, everything I do almost, I'm required to work in my potential weaknesses. And I say, well, how does that make you feel? And they say exhausted, overwhelmed, like I'm imposter syndrome, all of these things. I said, imagine if we could now focus on what you're great at and align your work to being able to do all of that and more of that every single day. And they just look at me like, is that even possible? Like they've never even thought about strategically designing their work around what they're naturally able to do really easily. And so a lot of people find themselves in this place where they've chosen jobs that their parents pushed them into or wanted them to do, where their friends might have been doing it and they wanted to go to uni together and go to lectures together. You're young and you make those kind of choices, or wanted to make a lot of money. And then they make these small little choices along the way that might have seemed meaningless at the time, but you add them all together and one day you wake up and you look around and go, is this it? Is this the work I'm going to be doing until I retire? Is this as good as it gets? And I know that because that's how I felt before my recent shift to full-time coaching. And I refer to this as life drift, because you've just accidentally drifted off to this place, but then you wake up kind of freaking out one day going, how did I get here? And I don't even know what I'm going to do about this, because I don't want to stay here. I feel trapped, stuck, paralyzed, and with no plan. And I don't know about you, but it's that kind of situation is not going to make anybody feel comfortable. And they're the kind of people that I end up working with, that actually believe there's no way out, that there is no other choice for them, that they're stuck in this place. So this is where we then focus on their talents. And then I bring in the new career coaching side of things that focuses on their life purpose, what their motivations are, what interests you had as a kid. Like we really dive deep behind all of these beliefs that aren't serving them or didn't serve them to get to where they are, to do what I call finding their magic. And then once we've got there, we aim them to writing a new chapter of their work life.
I really appreciate that term, life drift. It makes a lot of sense in how, as we sort of travel along the river of life, we can drift off. And if we don't have that personal awareness or emotional intelligence, then we can lose track of who we are and feel lost and
Absolutely.
ways.
And there's so many people out there actually going through this on their own. I hear too often, thank you for doing these free trainings that you do and offering all of this inspiration, because I thought I was all alone feeling like this. And you've just described how I feel, and I feel so comforted to know that this is normal and it's okay to feel this way. And it shouldn't be like this. People shouldn't be suffering like this, feeling they don't have choices and not realizing life could be designed, their work life could be designed so much better for them if they just had this knowledge about how misaligned they are right now.
And how valuable to have that knowledge of the strengths within rather than not, and to open up their self-awareness for one, but also the possibilities of hope moving forward. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I love it.
Huge.
I know. And in your work, Binny, I know Leanne and I have been doing lots of work on psychosocial hazards. And I guess the question that we'd really like to sort of get your understanding about the support for your crew is, how important do you think creating that psychological safe space can actually ignite a sense of wonder and opportunity for others to really think about how they might be able to rewrite those stories that you talked about?
Yeah, it's probably the most important step. As I mentioned, that all these people are there sitting there going, I'm stuck in this job. This is it. I'm too scared to tell my partner or my family because I've probably spent thousands on university degrees, 20 years building up a career in something I don't love anymore, and it doesn't bring me joy. In fact, it's actually making them really sad. That conversation's really hard to have. So I've actually created a private Facebook group specifically for people that are in this situation. And I choose the word really carefully to help them self-identify of that you're in this life drift. You're just not excited by work. Getting yourself out of bed and going to work in the morning doesn't motivate you, but you're stuck and you don't have a plan. So they already feel like, oh, this person, they're describing how I feel, but how do they know that? So they already feel like they're going to be in the right place. So they join my group, and I offer every fortnight, I do a free live training in there. And really what I'm trying to do is be that catalyst for making them realize all they have to do is take one small step forward, and that they do have choice. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is believing that they have a choice to make, and that they can make a choice, and that they're not stuck. And then it's about helping them understand why they've got this huge fear around potentially even saying to their partner or family, I think I want to change, or I think what I'm doing isn't right for me anymore, but feeling comfortable with that. So I teach them, I educate them, I empathize, I talk a lot about the experience I had, where I've managed myself through 2 significant career shifts where I just realized I'm not happy and I'm not putting up with this. But I've got the kind of strengths that enable me to do that on my own. A lot of people don't. So what they're essentially doing is borrowing from me, borrowing my attitude of possibilities, my view from my futuristic talent of hope and what might be, and helping them see that for themselves, when sometimes either they don't have the strengths that enable them to do that, or they're in such a dark place they can't see that. So I'm just sort of lighting that fire in this group. And I think that space, I mean, so many people message me and say, thank you for just doing this free training and just getting me started and believing there is an option out there and my future could be different. So it's super important, because otherwise I don't think they would even contemplate doing anything if they didn't have that space to explore.
Yeah, love that. Just on that, I'm curious to hear from you, how important are choice and hope in supporting clients to rethink their opportunities and discover their unique potentials and bring more joy and motivation to enable them to take positive action towards the things that they really desire to achieve.
Yeah. So important. In actual fact, choice and possibilities are 2 of my favorite words. And because what I can see, and this is the one thing I found when I was self-coaching myself through a significant career change. I was leaving a career of 20 years, probably, at a level where I was highly respected. Many hadn't had the amount of years experience in the digital space that I was in, because I started, when websites, you had to explain to somebody what a website was. So it was scary to walk away from that. It's all I knew. But I kept reminding myself, I have the power of choice. No one can take that away from me. And if I choose this is not making me happy anymore, then what I've got to work out is, what are my possibilities? Once you have possibilities, you have something to choose. The problem is that they want to make a choice to move away from what they're doing, but if they can't see the possibilities, there's nothing to choose. So they're stuck. Yeah. So they work really closely hand in hand. And the whole idea of choice and possibilities is actually, and this is the irony of shifting to coaching, I didn't realize I was actually training myself for 20 years in design thinking and the double diamond of going really wide with possibilities, and then testing and evaluating them and bringing it back in to narrow it down to a couple to then make a choice. I do this for my job all the time. So all I'm doing is shifting it from technical projects and building features on websites to what are your possibilities from here when I'm coaching somebody, and let's help you feel really confident about making that choice. And that is something I used to do all the time, is test it so you felt confident that where you landed was the right choice for various reasons. So it sort of fascinated me more recently that I can't believe I can actually, I thought I was making a complete career change, but actually I've translated so much across and leveraged that in my coaching. But it's so powerful, those two words.
I think that when we think about motivation theory or building pathways of hope, what you've spoken there is so validated in the science around being able to plan, okay, if things don't quite work out, I might take this option or that option. And I think you've really explained that, or related quite well in what you've explained there. So thank you.
And we love a bit of hope theory, don't we, Leanne?
We love it.
Because I guess with hope theory, what happens with that is you've got the possibilities, but it's also about looking at, like with the choices that you're saying, is what are the obstacles? So if you have obstacles, but you still really want to be able to pursue that pathway, then what do we do to actually get around those things? And even being in that process is a really lovely thing to go, oh, there's still actually possibilities with these really big barriers. So and that's where that coaching really fits in there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
should be a client of yours.
What's fascinated me as well is knowing the strengths of the people I'm coaching. Often if they don't have futuristic, which is my number 3, so I'm all about what could be painting a visual picture of this is what I see for your future, really visualizing and taking them there. If they have that talent really low, they're actually incapable of doing that for themselves. And that's something that hadn't dawned on me until I came across this. And I'd say, well, what are your thoughts? What are the possibilities you're thinking about? I've got nothing. It's like, wow, I can't fathom that because I've never lived like that. I've got ideation and all of these different talents that are all about this thinking and ideas. So some people need a coach because they couldn't do this on their own. So they're borrowing my talents, which is strengths partnership, in order to help them get over what for them is a mental barrier of just not being able to see possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Oh, I think I get this exciting one for the next one, Binny. I'm loving this conversation so far. So in the light of what we've been speaking about, do you have any advice for how perhaps employers can help to create those safe and inclusive environments that enable maybe job clarity, or for people to bring their strengths to work more often and live the lives that are going to help them thrive a little bit more at work?
I love this side of applying strengths because I've never been conventional. And I think that's why I've always worked in digital innovation, because I'll always do things that haven't been done before. So naturally, as a team manager, and knowing this about my team members and knowing their strengths and having that deep understanding of who they are and what makes them tick, and even better, my number 1 strength is individualization, which makes me innately able to spot this in people anyway. So I have a passion for seeing what people are great at and making sure the work they do aligns to what they're great at. So you can imagine arming me with this information about my team and not being able to just ignore it and go, right, well, you've all got a job description and you've all got to do everything, a little bit of everything the same way. That wasn't how I approached anything. I didn't tell HR I was doing things differently, but what I saw was that when I knew that one team member was exceptionally great at influencing and the others weren't, then they would do all our team presentations. They would do our, what do they call the stakeholder workshops to try and influence them on changes we were making. Other team members were amazing with analytics and data. So if we had to analyse the site usage and work out if features were working or not, then they would do that with their eyes closed and love it and be energized by it. But what I also did was we'd do workshops every month where we'd have everybody's strengths up on a grid, and we'd look at, well, who's strong in different areas, but also if you're not strong in a particular area, who can you partner with that has those particular talents, so that you can go to them and get a little injection of thought or ideas around how to do that, and then go off. And so it sort of kick-started them in doing things that weren't naturally, or they don't find flow in as easily. So you'd find these groups of people working together where someone says, I've got to do a presentation, but I just can't think about how to do it. And they'd go and find someone with a communication talent who'd say, well, how about you have this as the topic and this is the thread? And they go, oh, that's amazing, thanks. And then they'd go off skipping and be really happy about filling the gaps. But this is not how teams are managed. But it made for the most amazing collaboration, the understanding and respect our team had for each other's strengths, and the comfort that they had in being really open about their weaknesses. So there was no need to pretend that they could do something or try and hide it from the team and hope they didn't notice that they weren't good. Like, I was the first to say, analytical is my second bottom. You bring me a spreadsheet and ask me to analyze it, and it'll take me days. I'll probably have to Google how to do a pivot table, and I won't actually understand what I'm doing. So I said, if anyone in the team is happy to do that work, and then bring it to me and I'll help you structure the strategy around what we do with that, because that's my forte. So we were really open about that kind of thing. Now, that's what brought joy to the team. That's what had us more innovative and working together in such a harmonious way because of that deep understanding. And to me, that is the way every manager should understand and look at and manage their team members.
You can really see how that would change the dynamic in the team, understanding strengths in a team dynamic. It changes how we see situations as well. You mentioned just before, it's not personal, it's just we understand how everyone operates. Whereas before that, prior to knowing that, it's possible that those things were seen as barriers to perhaps conflict or feeling things weren't quite right. So then all of a sudden you see the whole team in a very different light, and that are empowered to work differently together in a way that just brings about, in a change perspective, a positive change, because everyone's igniting one another to move forward.
Yeah. Oh, I've got goosebumps just you saying that. I mean, this is how excited I get about it. Many people think I'm a little bit obsessed with it all, but it's the power that it can bring to have such a positive impact, not just at work. They take that home.
Yes.
Because it's just, they're energized and ignited all day long. How can that not be infectious outside of the workplace?
Yeah.
And you're right in that whole harmony of before, when you'd have someone that's going, well, I'm a lot about, oh, I just think this is what we should do. I just feel it. I can sense it. I'm not a data-driven person much. But then the person in the team that won't move forward unless they have proof and data, in the past would say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to move forward on that until I've got this, this, and this. So then I would do it differently, and I'd say, this is how I feel about it. But do you know what, Michael? I'd love you to go away and see if you can find some data so we can marry that together. So all of a sudden, everybody's invited to bring what they're great at, rather than us getting upset that I want to do it this way, but this is how I want to approach it. That just vanishes because we all respect that everyone approaches everything differently.
Totally.
On that, Binny, do you have a success story perhaps that you could share of how your wonderful work with strengths has transformed your clients? What are you most proud of in your work in this space?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously the teams I've worked with was amazing, but some of the individuals that I've coached, there's one example of she's in her 50s, never really found any joy in her work. And she came to me, we did her strengths, and then we worked through the career change program, which is a framework that I use from the UK that's been developed over 20 years. So the combination of her knowing her strengths, and she said, I've only ever had administrative roles. And then when we got her strengths back, I said, why do you talk about that like that's not good enough? You know, you have so many executing talents in your top 10. You are a master problem solver. I bet you walk in and see everything that's wrong in an organization and could turn that around and fix that in no time and have all the processes and systems down pat, have everything working like clockwork. She goes, oh, absolutely, everywhere I go. So that is invaluable. And so we had to help her own that, not devalue it. And then she said, I've always dreamed about working in forest regeneration. I said, great. Well, you know, we started looking at, well, where might that be? Started earmarking some locations and places that you'd like to work. And I said, now we need to do what's referred to as SHIP projects, where you experiment with that and test, can I do that? Is that really what I want to do? So she started volunteering to do replanting in forests. Now she's up northern New South Wales, summertime, tropical, went and started doing this volunteering and then realised going through perimenopause in her 50s in the heat all day, planting wasn't going to work for her. But that's okay because it's all about experimenting because that was really low risk. She didn't leave a job to work that out. I said, well, how about you work in the project space? Because you're such a great administrator and problem solver and can get things done. What if you were organising behind the scenes how this planting project might happen? So then she started exploring that. And through the immersion in where she wanted to end up, she was on a Facebook group where Landcare posted a job for a project administrator, which she wouldn't have seen unless she started doing all of this. And she applied for that job, and now and we do an exercise called My Ideal Work Life, where you actually write a script or a story of what it feels like to be working your ideal job, knowing everything you know about you towards the very end of the program. And she messaged me and said, I've just walked down the stairs of my house on my first day of my new job working for Landcare, and I just realised I am living the scene in my ideal work life that I wrote 3 weeks ago. And she said, I've got to pinch myself. I cannot believe this. And then later she sent me a photo of her office where they had a meeting by a pond in a rainforest with lily pads and flowers all over it. And she said, I'm still getting over the fact that this is my job.
Oh, beautiful.
That is so good. Imagine having a meeting near a pond and just being there with your whole team. How wonderful.
I know, it's amazing. So that just brings me so much joy because she never thought that could ever happen.
Yeah, that is so good and so wonderful to be proud of the work that you're doing there too. So thanks, Binny. I know we're getting towards the bottom end of our conversation, and I'm just wondering, do you have like any books or resources, podcast, TED Talk that you might like to share with our listeners today? And we'll put all those into the show notes, just to see what other people really want to find out more about.
Yeah, absolutely. I often share things in the private Facebook group that I've set up for people sort of pursuing this. And one of them I shared recently that everybody loved was a really short 15-minute interview with Simon Sinek. And it was about how you can explore back into your childhood, which is what we do a lot of. And this is a sort of process we do in my career coaching to determine your purpose or your why. So he demonstrates doing that in this 15-minute video. It's a lovely snippet and a really quick way for people to just get a taste of what that's about if they've just found themselves in that life drift that we talked about before. There's another amazing podcast I love where Mel Robbins, it's her podcast, interviews Stephen Bartlett, an entrepreneur. And it's about decision making, and it's about the speed of decision making, but also exploring how you might be making decisions and it may be not the right way. And the one thing I love about it in there is that you don't have to be 100% certain before you make a decision. And I apply this to if you're making a decision to move forward with a career change. that if you're waiting for 100% certainty, you will never get it. No one ever does.
Yeah.
So 51% certainty is all you need, and just take that first step forward and just keep moving forward with it. And I find this is one of the biggest aha moments for my clients, is they've been waiting for 100% certainty about, oh, what should I do next? And it completely paralyzes them. So that's a brilliant one to just give you the courage to just be a little bit more daring with your decision making. And then my book is The Resilience Project, by, I'm going to say his name wrong, Hugh Van Cuylenburg.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hugh Van Cuylenburg. Yep.
And, it's all about getting rid of those junk values that might have just found you in a life where you just are not happy and not finding joy, and just bring it back to the basics. And it's a beautiful reminder of that. So I found that book really powerful as well.
Oh, thank you, Binny. They're beautiful. I'll put those in the show notes for sure, so that everybody can dive into them at their pleasure.
Brilliant.
Binny, we're coming to the end of our time together, and we're so grateful to be spending this time with you today. But one of our last questions for you is, if you had a secret magical wand, what is one thing you would do to make the world a better place for others?
I would magically allow everybody to unearth their innate talents and just know immediately, this is what I'm great at. Obviously, if it was a magic wand, I'd miss the joy of seeing the aha moments for them, because that I live for. But I'm happy to give that up for everybody to have this knowledge, and then help them believe in these superpowers that are so unique to them, that they are special, and to stop having that comparison and imposter syndrome, just to be happy with what they have and own that and aim that, and so that they can find greater fulfillment, happiness and joy, and then that just gets magnified and multiplied around the world. And it's just a really, really powerful way to just change the sentiment of people and the planet.
Oh,
Beautiful.
love it. Love a bit of a magical
you.
wand too. And Binny, if people really want to connect with you, especially about and learn a little bit from you as well, or maybe contact you and become a client, who knows, where would they find you?
Sure. So my website, the Inkling Effect, which is INKLING, effect with an E, has a lot of information on there about my different coaching options. If anyone was interested in joining, and everybody's welcome, the Pursuing Brilliance Facebook group, just search Pursuing Brilliance as a group and then just ask to join, and I'll give you access to that. And then just Binny Langler, my name, on LinkedIn, and be happy to connect there. I also do articles and some great posts on LinkedIn as well.
And I have to do a bit of a shout out. Your posts, and they are brilliant. So anybody, if you have anything to do with particularly career changes, definitely dive on in to the Inkling Effect for sure. We'll put all of that, Binny, in our show notes for everyone so that they can access it again at their leisure as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Binny, for speaking with us today. It's been the most wonderful, wonderful conversation, and we can't wait to release that into the world shortly.
Beautiful. I really love this. It's been great. I love to chat, so anytime.
Yeah. That was a lovely conversation with Binny.
I always love talking about strengths. What was one of your takeaways, Lisa?
Look, there were so many of them. I think one of the things that I love, that life drift. If you're just drifting, what a value is that of just drifting? But taking some action is really important. But I also noticed there was a lot of things that she mentioned today about choice and possibility that really brought up the theory of hope, that hope theory about how do you overcome also those barriers and obstacles in the way, but also designing pathways around them to really get that as what you're aspiring to do. What about you?
Yeah, like you, that life drift, I really connected to that. Like I think many of us can identify if we have felt a little bit, lost, for want of a better word, in transition. You can just get caught in that not really knowing where to go. But when you understand your strengths and what you bring to the world, you approach things a whole lot differently. And you know what? Just because you know your strengths doesn't mean you don't get caught with that life drift either. But I think when you have that understanding of self, then you will approach that life drift differently. And like you, I immediately went to hope theory in thinking, okay, if this doesn't work, what next? Having some different pathways to work towards something. And I think that's a great piece of knowledge to have and know and understand, that helps you move forward. And I couldn't help thinking again around that positive emotion when she was talking about teams and leveraging off of each other's strengths, and how that changes the dynamic. And when we feel good, others feel good too. And I think that's that's just
I think that's what stood out for me too about that. When people in teams share their strengths with others, all of a sudden it brings that back to that job crafting, in that wellbeing science, is that if I'm really good at something or not so good at something, I can work with a partner, and she talked about strengths partners where you can learn from each other. But it's almost like changing what you do in your job to actually be of benefit of your strengths, which means that everything's going to be amplified. But you can also share. If someone's struggling in something else, you can swap that over. And I think that's such an amazing thing, to have strength partners, but also crafting your job to bring out the best of you for the company or the organisation or you individually.
And just because your strength is lower than you thought, or I think the key thing is to remember that they are strengths and they are developable. So by having that strengths partner is a really strategic way of amplifying that strength, learning more about how to use it.
Yeah. And that strength partner could end up being like a mentor for you to remind you when you're getting stuck again, because that happens, is that, what can you do next? Anyway, it was an amazing discussion and conversation, and look forward to doing a little bit more choice and thinking about possibilities.
Lovely. Excellent. All right. Well,
have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.